Hey everyone, welcome in to another daily editorial here on the KE Report. I'm getting an update from Metalla Royalty and Streaming. We're going to be recapping the Q3 financial results and then even more importantly, looking ahead to this current quarter, Q4, as well as 2025 in terms of where the company sees growth coming from its royalty and streaming portfolio. I am chatting with Brett Heath, CEO of Metalla. Metalla is traded on the TSX and the the TSX Venture and the NYSE under the symbol MTA. Now, Brett, overall Q3 financials, you had 7 assets paying. A couple new assets look like they came online, but overall the quarter was a bit soft in terms of overall production levels at the assets, the royalties and streams that Metalla holds. Give us just a quick overview of the Q3 results, please.
Thanks, Corey. Yeah, so Q3 was, roughly kind of in line, maybe a little bit below what our expectations are. But the big takeaway is the new assets that are in production. So this was kind of our first quarter where we'll be receiving payments for Tocantinzinho and La Guitarra, and that is kind of the critical takeaway because those will scale into Q4 and into Q1 of 2025 and be, additional growth drivers of the assets.
Now, Brett, as we move forward, you talked about TZ and La Guitarra, these ones that have just come online, should see growth. What other assets within the portfolio do you expect to see growth or decline from?
So going into 2025, we're expecting additional kind of 3 potential assets to come online, and we're expecting one to probably stop producing or at least slow down in a pretty meaningful way. The growth assets that we have kind of coming into 2025 is going to be Amalgamated Kirkland, Endeavor, which is probably the most meaningful one within the growth profile into 25, and then also potentially La Parrilla, which we think may have potential either kind of the latter half of 25 or kind of the first half of 26 is kind of how we're seeing that one potentially come along. But what we see is Tocantinzinho and La Guitarra continuing to scale up through Q1 of 25, and Q2 of 25 is where Polymetals, which is the operator of Endeavor, is guided the market that they're expecting kind of first production in Q2. So how this lines up for Metalla is that we're expecting a much more meaningful quarter in Q4 from a revenue and gold equivalent production profile. And I think we should roughly see consecutive increases for the next potentially up to like 6 quarters or so as we see TZ scale up. The balance of our production profile with Aranzazu and Wharf and La Guitarra are fairly steady Eddie as we expect over the next year or so. And so with these growth assets coming along, specifically Endeavor being the most meaningful one, looking to kind of continue to move the revenue and the production up in Q2, which will ramp up into Q3 and Q4 of 25 and even into kind of probably the first part of 26 before it's running at a full capacity.
So, Brett, if we take kind of a big picture look at the overall gold equivalent ounces that are attributable to the company in Q3, just under 650 there, driven mostly by 2 assets. Do you see out of these new assets that just came online, or the ones coming online in 2025, those having a significant increase in the gold equivalent ounces coming to Metalla?
Yeah, well, we should see TZ and really Endeavor into 2025 being a very significant driver. And in fact, we haven't put out our formal guidance for 2025, which we'll be doing so in the new year, in the not too distant future. But, expectations is that we'll likely see, upwards of a double of gold equivalent production from what we're expecting to get in 2024. And we see that increasing in a very meaningful way in 2026 and 2027, and really going out to 2029 and 2030 even. So, but where we feel that we have the most visibility is really the next few years, and the operators that are advancing these, call it, much lower risk assets to production.
What are some of these development plays outside of the ones coming on in the near term, say even next year, that you can highlight for us that could help to move the needle in terms of overall revenue numbers?
Yeah, so going into 25 and 26, obviously we noted on Endeavor being a big part of that, and La Parrilla, but kind of going in a little bit further as we look in kind of the back half of 26 into 27, we've got Cote, which we own a royalty on the northern part of the Cote pit, and as IAMGOLD, their mine plan is basically phasing from the south to the north. So they're mining quite a bit from the south, and they'll continue to kind of move to the north. We believe they'll get into that probably towards the latter part of 26 into 27, and that'll be another meaningful production profile for us kind of into 27. Then we've got also 15-mile stream that has potential to kind of come online during that time frame, also San Luis during that time frame. And as we kind of step out into this 2028 to 2030 kind of window, we have a very significant amount of growth with some really big assets. Now, are we confident kind of that these will all come in production? I think that if we can kind of take a bit of a window approach over a 2-3 year period, I think we do have that level of confidence. Nothing ever comes online exactly when you're expecting to, as we see these things shifting around. But just to give everyone an idea of the significance of kind of what we're looking at in the back half of this decade, we have Castle Mountain that is expected to come online. I mean, this is an asset that we'll be doing on average, around 5,000 geos by itself. We've got, which also, we think, according to First Quantum, they're still guiding that they think they may get their final permits before the end of this year. That's also an asset that could do another 5,000 geos by itself. From a production standpoint, we've got Wasamac, which we think as Malartic transitions underground, that will become a kind of a critical and key piece to providing the open pit tonnage. We also have Gosselin, which is kind of the other part of Cote, the growth aspect of Cote, and where I think it will inevitably be our most material asset, just given the sheer size of how fast that asset has grown and what the potential is. We don't know exactly what it is. It's already sitting at 7.4 million ounces in all categories, but we are very confident. We think that will go probably through 10 million ounces and inevitably be a part of kind of a Malartic or Detour type of operation, where they'll look to scale that up to a much higher rate of throughput, probably around 55,000 tons per day. So as we see kind of these assets, you can also throw in Copper World that's been moving along, royalties on Fosterville and so forth. There is a lot of optionality that is embedded in this portfolio. So we're very excited about it. We're also excited as we get into the new year to get back kind of on track within the transaction side of things. We're seeing a lot of really interesting opportunities. We don't expect the business to have such a high rate of transactions as it did in the past, but the transactions that we do, I think, will be much more impactful. So we're excited about the potential to add to this growth as we get into 25 and 26, 27. We're expecting some very significant improvements just within our business and our cost of capital and our access to capital, as well as the cash flow profile changes. And so I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities there as we kind of get into the new year.
So, Brett, let's talk financial management then, because we can see on these financials at the end of Q3, end of September, company had over $10 million in the bank. You are still generating a net loss here through these operations, though. But look, the loss per share has decreased from the comparatives of last year. Company has money, but you're also looking at doing transactions, but you're also telling me that gold equivalent ounces should be growing, so you should be generating more cash flow. How do you go about managing your finances in this environment where you're still not generating a gain through operations?
So if you look at our quarter, what I would do is I would point shareholders to look at and we provide this metric in our management discussion analysis, but I would point shareholders to the EBITDA growth, which is kind of a more clean way of understanding the profitability of royalty companies specifically, and also operating cash flow to see kind of the overall health. And I think that what you'll notice is that in 2025, that will become positive in a very meaningful way. And it'll really set the stage of kind of consistent quarterly and annualized EBITDA and operating cash flow growth on the company that really kind of changes the game again from that perspective.
So from the transaction front, then, you said that you're looking for transactions that would be impactful for the company. Company has a lot of assets, a lot of royalties and streams that you hold. Again, 7 paying in Q3, looking to go up to, let's say, 8 or 9 in 2025. What is impactful for Metalla then? What type of transactions are you going after?
Well, we'd be looking at, what we've done and kind of where we focused our business from the very beginning was really on growth and quality. And now we have a lot of that growth and quality. And in fact, that growth and quality will carry us easily through the end of this decade and probably even into the middle of the 2030s. And so it allows us in a market like today, where you're in a rising commodity price environment, to really kind of take a very disciplined approach to new acquisitions and really kind of focus around that, can provide either a lot of optionality or potentially fast forward and really kind of pull forward some of this cash flow.
So, Brett, what do you want to leave investors with here? This company is, again, sounds like there's some growth coming organically through the portfolio. You are still on the acquisition front, but in all fairness, that's what royalty companies, especially the smaller ones, are always looking for: some sort of acquisition, some sort of growth in terms of transactions. What do you want to leave investors with, understanding Metalla's growth profile here?
Well, what I want to leave investors with is that the portfolio in itself and the work that we've done over the last 8 years is going to change the profile of this business if we do nothing. And when you look at where we're trading today and you look at kind of the profile of the company over the next couple of years, it's a very attractive entry point into this business. We feel that a lot of this value is being missed because the market has been so backward looking. And it's not uncommon for businesses to invest in the future. And when you think about some of the great businesses that have ever been built in history, you look at the Amazons and other ones in different sectors, there's always been a stretch where these businesses invested in the future. And that's exactly the approach that we took. We took a very long-term approach. We made a lot of investments in the future to set the company up to be in a really strong position. We feel like we're in that strong position now, and we feel like we're going to be able to capitalize on it over the latter part of this decade and be a leader in this business. And we think we're going to be able to deliver value to shareholders in a number of different ways. So that's what I would leave with them.
Excellent. All right. Thank you very much for your time, Brett. Again, Brett Heath, CEO of Metalla Royalty and Streaming, traded on the TSX Venture and the NYSE under the symbol MTA. Please, everyone, send me your questions for Brett regarding anything going on at Metalla, and I will get Brett to address those in future calls. Brett, thanks again for your time.
Thanks, Corey.